Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Don't Quote Me, because I've had a lot of fun with the first one. I actually really like how I am trying to remember things. Like, this is forcing me to go and double check myself afterwards and be like, okay, that was wrong, that was wrong, that was wrong. But besides all that, the next episode I'm very excited for. So let's just get right into it. So up next we have Iceman, or Bobby Drake, or I believe his name is Robert Drake. I believe that's why they call him Bobby. Anyways, he is a mutant. Obviously, you can see. If you don't know, he is a mutant. He's part of the X-Men. He's been a long time member of the X-Men. I always liked him. He was really cool because I liked his ability. This is a cool thing that uh, that I learned later on in life, which is, if I remember this correct, like I said, don't quote me. I thought his original ability was his mutant power was ice, like to make his body ice, to make things around him turn to ice, stuff like that. Kind of like, oh, I'm going to grab this, kind of like a Midas touch. For some of you who don't know, the Midas touch is whenever King Midas touched something, it turned to gold. So I thought that's what he kind of had. I'm going to touch this, boom, it turns to ice. I can make ice, I can conjure ice, stuff like that. As I got older, I found out, like I said, don't quote me. I believe the way his power works now is not just now, I guess this is how it always worked, is he himself does not technically make the ice, kind of like how, let's say, Human Torch can make fire, like he can just boom the fire. He doesn't technically make the ice. He freezes things, or he absorbs, how do I explain, he freezes the moisture in the air, but he can also like cool the temperatures around him. Like, he himself just cools everything off. And it's kind of hard to explain, but he needs moisture. So if I'm not mistaken, his actual technical weakness is cold, because if he's in a cold area where there's not a lot of moisture, or vice versa, he's in a hot area where there's not a lot of moisture, he can't really do his power because he needs water molecules in the air to do what he does. So I thought that was really cool to learn that it's different than what I thought. He also has cool things. So for example, if you have the question, what happens if he gets hit in his, because he's ice, right? What happens if his body gets destroyed? Well, the cool thing about him is, if he is in the ice form, he can actually kind of not reconstitute himself, but like bring himself back together. Unless reconstitute is the word, like I said, don't quote me. But he can bring himself back together from being destroyed. He also has, I believe, the ability to make like any weapon he wants out of ice, and it doesn't break unless he wants it to. Like, it's kind of interesting there, because I don't know if he's constantly freezing it or what he's actually doing. One cool thing about him too, real quick to make this video short and sweet, like I said, he's part of the X-Men, has an X gene. His power is to cool temperatures around him, or like freeze things around him. He can, if I do believe this, he is now able to, within the last, I think it was like, I want to say 10 years, in the last decade, he is now able to go absolute zero, where he can just stop somebody, all the atoms around them, inside them, just freeze them basically where they are. And the last thing I want to say about him, I think technically he quote unquote freezes time. He actually doesn't freeze time itself. He just absolute zeros things, so everyone around him thinks that he is like freezing time, if I remember that correctly. But yes, Bobby Drake, super cool ice guy. Iceman, I don't know what I call him, Ice Guy. Super cool X-Men. Always loved him. Really cool.